Hi everyone, welcome to this chat. And today I have got a very special guest with me. Someone I interacted with. First, I interacted either late last year or early part of this year. But the first interaction itself, I think the seed of this conversation was already sown, and Sandeep will remember that. I have got Sandeep Nath with me, and Sandeep, so lots of things to talk about, and I was just talking to him about it. Lots of things to talk about him, but just to give you a short introduction, and I'll try and keep it as short as possible. Founder of something called RENEWALism, and you will come to know about it in a few seconds. Very distinguished, uh, inspirational speaker, works in the area of mindfulness, energy, inner power, something that I would love to talk about, but not for this session. Probably I'll get back to you all on this a little later. He's also the author of a book called Renewal, Your Unexpected Role in Saving the Planet. So all of this to talk about, but what I'm going to do today, and I've taken permission from Sandeep about it. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to limit it uh, to talking about stress and how and I'm sorry, I completely forgot about it. Sandeep, and in his own words, he's a crusader against stress. I liked it a lot because that's one of the as far as my experience goes in working with people in my area, I think that's number one disease that anyone can have. The mother of all diseases. So, all right. So here we have Sandeep Nath. I have got a few questions for him, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be very helpful to both the communities, my community and the community that Sandeep has, the big community that he has.
I
Sandeep, a few questions for you, as I said. So, first of all, very welcome. Thank you very much for accepting the invite. It's
pleasure,
something
pleasure
I'm
is all
very
mine.
interested in.
Thanks, Harsh.
Thank you. So Sandeep, and I'll just start from the very basics. A lot of things I am very excited about. So let's start with the first question that I have for you. So tell us about renewalism, and your crusade against stress.
Wow, it's a great question to start with. It's really close to my heart, and thanks for that introduction because that's right, guys. Stress is a termite, and it's just like a termite. You don't know that it's multiplying like crazy inside. And the first time that you get to know about it is when a wall collapses or a cupboard goes hollow. And those walls and cupboards are our bodies. So it's something that is very, very important to address. And I'm so happy that Harsh, you decided to make an entire episode on this subject because it warrants that and more. And my crusade against stress actually started because I lost my dearest friend to stress, which went unidentified for years. And suddenly I get a call. We hadn't been in touch for many years, but we had a history of 25 years, And his wife tells me that he's in the ICU, he's had a brain stroke. And I say, man, why didn't he talk to me? And I'll never forget this conversation we had outside the ICU where she said, Sandy, what would he talk to you? He wasn't talking to me. So that's what's happening with millions and millions of people like him across the world, where we are either in denial of stress or we are just feel disgraced that we can't handle something and therefore it's overwhelming. After all, what is stress? It's something that overwhelms you. The demands exceed your resources as you think of it. So,
Absolutely.
what is Renewal? Well, Renewal is the book that I wrote last year, and it's been internationally acclaimed. It is your unexpected role in saving the planet. How does it become your role? Because it's about renewing ourselves through habits, and it's written by me, but it's divinely channeled by an energy form that introduced itself as Guru Pranachandra. So this is advice from Guru Pranachandra, which kind of, I would imagine, is the distillate of 15 years of study of ancient Oriental wisdom, which I've been doing. And this Guru Pranachandra just kept introducing characters and habits and quotes into my life and into my keyboard as I sat, and in 40 straight days, about 3-4 hours a day, I had 240 pages out. I had no idea the next minute what I would be writing, leave alone the next day. So when I started processing the inputs that we have in this book Renewal in its editing form, that's when I discovered, that's when COVID hit the world. So that was, I was editing around January, February of 2020. And by March, we were in lockdown. And I discovered that there is so much of stuff in this book, which is the right kind of habit in the event that we have a pandemic like situation, which we had. So I'd urge you guys to pick up a copy of the book for free from RENEWALism.com and go through it, because you would see how it all starts with mindfulness and stuff like that, which Harsh is an expert on. But instead of moving from a mindful start about our mask and about our physical distancing, can we carry that mindfulness further into what we consume, what we eat, how we interact, and stuff like that? So our interactions have changed thanks to the pandemic. We've started taking more care of at least the immediate family, and we're more in touch with them, with the parents, stuff like that, which we were kind of losing connection, if you remember, pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But these are renewal habits. This is what helps each one of us change ourselves at body, mind, spirit level, change our symbiotic relationships, and change the systems that we've got trapped under. And we've just been too busy to recognize that. That's been stressing us, and we just made that like a trade-off, lifestyle challenges and stuff like that. No, 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 no. All that is eminently addressable, and it begins from within. So that's what got me onto all this, Harsh. Thanks for asking.
Brilliant. Okay, and some of the words that I really liked there is the habits, right? I mean, I personally believe that there's so much that we can do. It's we use it so loosely, but there's so much we can do to improve the quality of our lives. Like you're mentioning that even in stress, it's all about a lot of things is about managing it, changing by changing habits. So that's interesting. Um, and somehow I had an inkling that there has to be some personal story behind, you know, behind renewal. What I would also like to know is, so you did mention about this sad incident about with your friend. Was that nudged you to choose this as your calling or as your life mission, if I can call it, or was there something more to it? Were you getting prepared for it in some way? You know, sometimes it happens, right? We are getting prepared over a period of time. So, what really nudged you to choose this as something? It's a big thing, right? To decide that I'll focus all my life energy towards this. I would be keen to know about that also.
That's amazing. It's amazing the questions you ask, because that's so insightful, Harsh. Yes, this incident was something that really got me to focus on the aspect of stress, but the aspect about our habits and about our consciousness, that actually would take us back about 15, 17 years. I used to run a consulting company in Hyderabad, and we were doing pretty well. I was consulting to some large multinational clients, and that was part of the problem. Because, it started disturbing me. The kind of stuff that we are doing, like we had this large consumer products company, and we were, what my company was handling was internal and external communications and culture building. So we were an integrated marketing and branding company. And we were part of the problem. We were asking people to open packets and stuff down their throats, and that's good for them. And common sense tells us it's not good for us. And then we had this other large BPO client who was having these young kids, 20 somethings, working against the biorhythm and solving problems of some silly credit cards and all, problems which to my mind should not have existed in the first place if we got our systems right. So I said, this is not happening. I mean, we're talking about hundreds and thousands of kids here, right? who are thinking that this is their purpose and this is like fulfillment of life. This is what we do.
Yeah. That's what
Uh,
life is,
I
probably.
said,
They start thinking.
I
Yeah.
said something's wrong in this equation, and that actually was what nudged me towards then figuring out, okay, so why are we here? What is our purpose? What is consciousness about? And it took me to Vedic gurus, and I was really fortunate to have so many of them in the vicinity, and fortunate to actually be able to learn from the likes of Satyasai and Shri Shri and others in South India. And one of them actually nudged me towards studying energy, because energy drives everything. And so I spent a few months in the Himalayas, in the monasteries, learning from Tibetan lamas, and that completely reshaped my life. But what started on, I think I should be using the word that completely renewed my life. so, so that's what started the journey of renewal. Because from then on, I kind of understood that we have it within ourselves, and that's called habits, to change our consciousness. And we are not conscious that habits have such an important role to play, and therefore we just go conforming with what everybody else is doing and adopt other people's habits without realizing that we're getting trapped. And if we want to break out of the trap, we are not to break out by anything outside of us. Even books like Who Moved My Cheese or Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah.
that's fine, that's good fuel, but it starts from within.
Within.
And that's why today, with all those learnings, I'm an inner power coach, and I help people connect with their inner power and get stress free, get all those nice things that you were talking about in my introduction. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's something that I and that was something that was there in my mind. So when you mentioned about your the incident with your friend, what came to my mind is that that could be the trigger. There has to be something that was preparing you for, in a way, preparing you for towards this. And isn't it interesting that there's so many times it's pain that pushes us towards pleasure. It's something that sometimes, like you mentioned, the BPO people, and then you sort of saw that maybe we are teaching them wrong things, like and that
Yeah.
I sort of can connect with that because I remember there was a point in my life when I said I have a challenge with committing, right? Committing towards a life goal. And then I said, no, it's not a commitment challenge. It's actually a challenge that I don't think that what I'm committing to, I'm not 100% sure whether that's the right way of living. So lucky that was powerful stuff that came to my mind, obviously, accidentally. A few things that,
You have a very illustrious corporate background, and I'm so glad you do what you do now.
yeah, I think they pushed me here. Everything pushed me here. Another thing that, like you talk about energy and sort of people going back to themselves instead of trying to find solutions outside. So probably we'll talk about it later. But that pranic energy and things like that, your breath can control and help you manage your energy. I think a lot of people know it at an intellectual level, but they just forget because we are so much focused on the outside, isn't it? So yeah, very interesting, Sandeep. Very interesting. It just gets more and more interesting. The next one that I have for you is uh, so. I think one of the things that comes to my mind is so when you work with people, what are most common but worst habits that you see in people that raises their stress levels? And what habits or what can they do to sort of get out of it?
See, there are a lot of things that, like I was saying, we just conform and we don't even think about it. But if you ask for, let's say, the top three, I love that everything in the world, it's fascinating. Everything is in threes. So you have the body, mind, and spirit. So I'm sure I'm going to fit three into body, mind, and spirit. And right off the bat, the body, the first thing that we do wrong, uh, and again, like I said, it's commonsensical, is that we eat out of a packet.
Yeah.
We've got to stop doing that. The closer we get to the unprocessed form of food, the closer we get to what we are about. You see, we have spent hundreds of thousands of years on this planet. And it's only in the last 100 years that we've got processed foods coming into our lives.
Yeah.
So we've got, I don't know what 100,000 minus 100 would be, but we've got that many years of history behind us to,
What
to,
in?
to process our dynamics internally in a certain manner.
Yeah. True.
And we don't expect 100 years of processed foods to change that around for us. Our anatomy is not changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the rising stress, the rising lifestyle diseases are all as a consequence of putting stuff from packets into our mouths. Eat nuts, eat berries, eat stuff that is coming straight from nature, vegetables, of course. And you can't trust non-vegetarian these days because of the kind of hormones that go into those animals, which then go into you.
Absolutely.
So it's not like you killed a deer and you're having it yourself. It's not the same thing. So I would not trust that. I wouldn't trust vegetables also to some extent because they are genetically modified and stuff. But we do find organic farms. We can grow our own stuff. So surely that's something to be mindful of to begin with. What are we consuming? Right? Because that could be a really bad habit. Then I think we are doing things too fast. So at a mind level, the mind is used to relaxing, right? It is used. It's like music. Now, if there were no gaps in music, it would be what? It would be a cacophony. It would be tuck, 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 tuck all the time.
Noise. Yeah.
That's not music anymore.
Absolutely.
So you got to understand that the speed of our lives has gone so fast that our minds not getting those gaps anymore, and then we are not allowing our kids to have those gaps either, and we're stuffing them with video games just to keep their mouth shut from the age of 3, and then we're complaining by the age of 5 they've got ADHD and stuff. Now, where does it come from? It comes from our mental capacity. Yeah? We are the ones who've got to figure that and change that
Yeah.
and slow down, enjoy the journey, because that's what living is about. And that's how we would actually be using the mind much better, because it goes back to the same analogy with the woodcutter, right? He could spend the whole day chopping a tree down, or he could take a break every hour and sharpen his axe for 5 minutes and maybe chop 3 trees in the same day. So chopping the tree by sharpening the axe is taking those breaks for mental replenishment, and not getting so driven by multitasking. I mean, that's the worst thing we could be doing. It really gets you down. It gets you much more inefficient. But it's a virtue. Modern management practices seem to. I go back to Zen practices. A Zen monk would never multitask. He may do 3 activities and he may do them concurrently, but because he's called to, but
Mm-hmm.
he would put a logical break to one, breathe, and then go to the second one, put a logical break to that, come back to the first one, stuff like that. So, and that's what successful businessmen do as well. I mean, if you read Richard Branson, for example,
Mm-hmm.
he writes about that. He's not jumping from airlines to media to music in 35 seconds. He does that one thing an hour or maybe a half day to each activity. So that's very important. I think we're talking about eating, we're talking about speed, and we're talking about sleep, because that's very important. Again, I go back to those BPO guys. These are fundamentals that we just have got to buy into, because we are driven by the circadian rhythm of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, if we go back to our yogic forms, we would be sleeping at sunset and waking at sunrise. But we're not doing that. Okay, give a little cushion to our socializing and whatever we do in the evenings. Uh, the least of important of which would be watching the TV. But let's say 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. All right, fine. But then keep your sleep to about 6 to 8 hours. So if you are going to get a full complement of sleep and you sleep at 11, you would wake up at 7, right? Or 6. I wouldn't compromise more than that. Because what your body is doing for those 7, 8 hours is it's replenishing energies. And I won't go into the details of this, but because all we're talking about is what are the worst things we could be doing, we could not be giving our body the opportunity to replenish the energy in the central channel, which gets replenished with the yin energies coming in, which are cooling.
Okay.
All I'd say to the intelligent viewer here is that where are your endocrine glands, which are responsible for all your hormonal and enzymatic activity? Go back to your biology diagrams. They are here, the pituitary gland, thymus, thyroid, somewhere here, the adrenals, all of them are on your central channel. So if you're energizing your central channel, what are you doing? You are refreshing everything that it takes to have the right kind of enzymatic, metabolic, and hormonal activity.
So you are renewing yourself every day.
You're renewing yourself on a daily basis. Well said.
Brilliant. So, basics, but we miss it, isn't it, Sandeep? So, get the food right. That's what you said. Get the food right. Second one, I don't know if when you were talking about it, I was just thinking, why do we find it so difficult to take breaks, to find those gaps? So one of the things that I'm trying to do is I have put a timer. I will put a timer on and say this is my thinking time, or it's a deep thinking time. So at least I'm trying that. So because I think somehow we have got obsessed to busyness in this world of business. We have got so obsessed with busyness, and it's I will still be honest. It takes a lot for us to understand that taking breaks will uh, actually help us do better, be more productive. Like you mentioned, some of the most successful people do it.
Sharpening the
And
axe.
yeah, yeah, and I hope viewers who are watching it are able to practice that, because I personally feel that will be difficult to sell that idea to themselves that you take break. And I think it'll be a good thing. I would be open for your suggestion is to try it for some day, like take breaks and see how you perform. And the last one you mentioned is about the sleep. Can I ask a sort of follow up question on that, because there is a bit of myth that I sort of see. Sleep, do we have so is it that everyone has to sleep for a certain number of hours, or is it dependent on it does it vary from person to person?
It does vary,
It does.
but it stays in a range of 6 to 8 hours in a
Okay.
24-hour cycle.
Okay.
And if you are getting 5 for any reason, feel free to take cat naps, 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there throughout the day without guilt, because you can add it up, you can bank it together.
Yeah.
But don't feel guilty about it, because you owe yourself 6, 7 hours at least.
And that's interesting, guilty, because I think I have felt that. So one of the mantra that I follow right now is listen to your body. Listen to your body. If your body is saying I'm tired, you are tired. So don't.
Right, absolutely. No, you're so right there, Harsh, because we are so keen to listen to all the chatter on WhatsApp and Facebook and everywhere.
Yeah.
We don't realize that there's a lot of chatter happening inside, which if we listen to, we'll do a lot better for ourselves.
Yeah.
That's what inner power is about.
And I think we wait for our body to start shouting by giving us blood pressure and other diseases, and only then we listen to it, because that's when it's like emergency call and you have to respond to it with some medicines and all that. Otherwise, that's very interesting thought that listen to it to your body. They are saying a lot of things. Your body is actually saying sending you a lot of signals. I really like that. And that brings me to the next question, and I think this is my favorite at the moment. what would your advice be to the teachers, to parents, to managers, leaders about how they can, because these are the influencers, these are the ones who shape the thought process of people because they have power in a way. What will your advice be to them how can they contribute towards reducing stress amongst the people that sort of have their influence on?
Great question. Very practical. And let me again see if we can break this down into steps. The first thing that I would urge anybody in a position of influence to do is get acquainted with early signs of stress. The problem with my friend was that he was not having an idea of the fact that that irritability that was getting into his life was not work pressure, was not a different behavioral trait that's come in, but it was actually stress.
Yes.
So there are a number of early signs at a body, mind, spirit level, like which we brush away as attitudes and habits and behaviors, uh, like loneliness, for example. The lack of appreciation might make one of your employees or one of your students a loner. And then you say, okay, he is a loner. That is how he is. But that's not how he is with the friends that he loves to be with, right? So is he a split personality? Are we giving him a schizophrenic label? These are all labels. At the end of the day, he is in your environment exhibiting this early sign, a symptom that that environment is stressing him or her.
True.
So that's what takes us to the next step. That if we recognize these signs, now spirit level is loneliness, and mental level is irritation, and let's say body level is just tiredness. You wake up with aches and pains and stuff like that, or you don't get sleep, insomnia. These are signs of stress. And what do? We pop a pill for it. What is that actually? It is like telling this body which is trying to talk to you, shut up. I'm not here to listen. Take the pill and go back to sleep or go back to eat or whatever you do. Right? So that's not good parenting, right? That's not good parenting of your own body. And these are early signs to begin with. We could do an entire workshop on that. But as you recognize these happening with you or with your team, the next thing to do is you've got to be uh, in a position, either yourself or through somebody in a peer group, who could have a conversation. So having conversations with confidants is incredibly important, because uh, the confidant knows that they are recognizing a sign. And like my friend's wife, for instance, in this case, she could have known, since she was with him day in and day out, which I wasn't at that point in time. But it's got to be done wisely, so that the person stops being his or her unflappable self. Like my friend, nothing could touch him. He always had the answers. He was always so joyful, and uh, he had it all under control all the time. That's what we like to project to the outer world, because we cannot be disgraced by the idea of a demand being greater than our resource, our capability, and that goes against our ego. But we've got to locate the kind of confidants who cut through this ego barrier,
Yeah.
and get the person to actually uh, admit that there is a problem which is deeper rooted than what they would like to admit, and it's not a problem. You see, physical issues like diabetes, for example, have stopped being problems. We talk about them at parties with friends we hardly know, strangers, right? But just as diabetes maybe 50 years ago was hush hush, because what the hell, you can't control the amount of sugar you eat. Are you nuts? So, uh, but it's out of the closet now.
Hmm.
Now, thanks to the pandemic, probably mental health has also been unmasked in a sense.
Hmm.
We're willing to talk about it. We are having an open conversation about it. But we've got to have these kind of conversations with our kith and kin. And our kith and kin have to be wise enough to be able to extract those conversations and to know that it's important to do that. And it's actually a matter of life and death. And the third thing is what builds this wisdom for both parties involved, the affected party and the caretakers, is being in touch with somebody who can impart that wisdom. Somebody like you, somebody like me, or people who are in the space of mental health, in the space of coaching, counseling, and have your best interests at heart.
Hmm. True.
So you just as you wouldn't want to solve a diabetes problem by yourself just because everybody around you is taking a jab of insulin, you wouldn't start with a jab. You probably go to a doctor and see what are the kind of dosage that you need and what exactly is going wrong and what might be the trajectory of this thing.
Right.
And likewise, you'd come to somebody like us to know what is the trajectory and what do we do next
Hmm.
and how do we get out of this. And you can get out of this kind of situation, be stress free all your life. And you don't do it by binging on Netflix, you don't do it by short term tips and tricks which you might find on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
You do it by finding long term solutions, which I've extracted from ancient Oriental wisdom, and Harsh has extracted from so many of these sources which he's accredited with. So that's what I would recommend that you do as a 3-step process.
Yeah, and Sandeep, it really sounded very interesting because while you were saying this, I was, constantly sort of thinking, okay, what could be the challenge? Number one thing that you said is, and I'll just sort of rephrase it to use my own words for it, and feel free to correct me. I've heard that it's about recognizing that there is a sudden change in habits, or someone's not behaving or leading a normal life. Could be stress for a leader, for a parent. They should be able to recognize, because I also see that there's so many people, there's so many telltale signs that the parents miss out in their children. uh, Sudden loss of weight, and all these things, sudden change in lifestyle. So recognizing. I also heard you talk about, and I'm missing a few steps, but also heard you talk about creating a culture of feeling free to talk about it. Because when you talk about it, you can you at least there is someone to share, and you don't feel guilty about it. And uh, so number one is naming that, okay, I have a stress is an issue, so I recognize it. It could be stress. Second is talk to people about it. And then I was thinking that, what if they do all these things? What is the and that was happening in my head is, can they take care of it? And I think it's really important for people to get out and speak to people who work in these, like you are doing, the kind of work you are doing. Probably coaches can help. Sometimes very specific, you may need someone who is probably, you know, very specifically working in counseling, field of counseling. But get a help that is available outside, because maybe you know about it, you recognize it, you are talking to people, but there are so many different tips that everyone's a doctor, right? Isn't it?
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
might not give you the right tip, and they might scare you even more than what you should be. So probably go to the right person and talk about it. And like the feeling I get about whenever I talk to you, or whenever I sort of today I was trying to learn more about it, and the kind of feeling I also had was, probably people like you can teach them how to deal with it in proactive manner. So like you mentioned at the end, make it a way of make a way of life that you can not only manage it, but you can use it as a way of improving your life. I'm not sure if I'm using the right word. There's something like that I heard of positive stress, right? You use stress as a way to jump and move forward. That can,
You don't allow the ill effects of stress to arise
yeah,
because
yeah,
you know how to handle them, like you said, proactively.
yeah, yeah. So that's so interesting. And like I said at the start, the feeling's still the same. So many things to talk about, but don't have time, and I haven't taken your permission for for more time. So I will not hold you back, Sandeep. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for accepting the invite. I'm so glad that you came. And to all those who are watching, who will watch this video, the audios, I'm 100% sure that there is so much that you can take away from interacting with Sandeep. So probably connect with him on LinkedIn and other places. Visit his website. First thing I would suggest is buy his book, Renewal Your Unexpected.
RENEWALism.com. Just hop across and pick it up. Yeah, don't even have to buy it. It's available on all leading portals, of course. But I would urge you to read up RENEWALism.com because it's your role in saving the planet.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you, Sandeep. Thanks for joining. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.